In this video, we want to talk about the determinants of innovation, or to be more specific, some of the determinants of innovation, because it is a complex subject and there are many determinants of whether innovation will take place or not. So the best we can do is to isolate out some of the more influential determinants and discuss their interrelationships. So in this video, we want to talk in particular about the Teece Matrix. Now, this is a very interesting little model. It shows a very interesting relationship that is certainly influential in whether innovation takes place or not, but is also part and parcel of a wider picture. And we can use the material from this video in a broader discussion of innovation, perhaps when more material has been studied and a greater in-depth understanding of innovation has been gained. But for the moment, let's concentrate on the Teece Matrix. As I said, it's a very interesting one, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain it as I go through, and then the last few slides on here, I'm going to go back over some of the material I've talked about and just skip over what's meant by it again, be a type of bringing it back to mind, or if you like, a revision of the video itself. So it's only 22 slides, but we'll go through it fairly fast, actually. It's not that sophisticated. But having said that, it's a very interesting one. It's got complementary assets on the horizontal axis and imitability on the vertical axis. Imitability means, can the product be imitated? Can it be copied? And the further up the axis we go, the easier it is to imitate the particular product or particular service. Complementary assets means the business may be able to produce the item, but also have related products. For example, specialist distribution or legal protection. That's a complementary asset. The company has devised a new product, let's say. It's innovated a product and it wants to protect the product. So it may have copyright, or it may have some sort of legal restraint on others from copying the product. So the Teece Matrix is a very interesting one. It simply focuses in on these two particular influences, which are very important, but they are, as I said earlier, part of a wider picture that all the videos in the course are aiming to build up. So let's see how this one works out. First of all, we need a scale on the axis, and the scale would be running on imitability from low to high. Low imitability means very difficult to copy it, very, very difficult to imitate it, very low chance of it being imitated. Because perhaps the product is so sophisticated, so complicated, so unusual, perhaps it needs specialist parts or machining or specialist inputs, whatever it is, means it's very difficult to copy. That would be low. High imitability means very easy to copy. Very, very easy. The product, more or less anyone can copy it. And on the horizontal axis, under complementary assets, we've got freely available and tightly held. Freely available, as the term suggests, quite easy to set up in business and start producing this particular product. It's freely available. The know-how is easily accessed. The raw materials, the machinery, the expertise, freely available. It's not protected by, let's say, copyright or patents, as some people say. It's not been protected, so it's freely available. And tightly held, the other way around, simply means that the product can be viewed, but it's very difficult for competitors to set up in production and start making this product, because the product is tightly held. In other words, the product is bound in with legal constraints or patents or know-how or expert machinery or modified machinery or particular competencies within the workforce which have to be trained over a long period of time. All of these will stop the competition. There is a linkage here with economics, and if you've covered some of the classes on economics, you'll recognize what I'm saying here to be related to what we call barriers to entry. Barriers to entry blocking out companies from entering a particular market. So let's explore this a bit further. First of all, we can start to fill out boxes here. The first one we can fill out is under freely available and high imitability. In other words, the product can be copied. It can be easily imitated. And also, the resources are freely available. In other words, freely available means easy to get. The technology is easy. Training people, easy, because the tasks are easy. So it's freely available. And there's no restriction, legal restriction in terms of copyright or in terms of patents, or there's nothing to stop companies from entering. So in that case, of course, it's difficult to make a profit. If it's profitable, a lot of companies will come in and set up because they want part of the profits. So the profits are competed away. The next one, number 4, down in the corner here. Well, here we've got low imitability and tightly held. Now, in this case, it's very difficult for companies to set up and start producing this. There are legal constraints. There may be technological constraints. There may be training aspects for the workforce that also are very difficult. There may be specialist knowledge involved. So the complementary assets are tightly held. But also, it's very difficult to copy the product itself. It may have very obscure and intricate parts. It may have specialist parts that are specifically produced for that product, perhaps circuit boards or particular chip combinations. In which case, it's the highest bargaining power profits. In this case, the company who produced this particular innovation, they're able to protect it because they're able to control their complementary assets. They've got legal rights on the product. They've got know-how, but also it's very difficult for competitors to copy it anyway. It's low imitability. If the complementary assets are freely available, but it's very difficult to copy the product. Now this means the bottom left-hand block where it says number 3, innovator profits. So it's freely available in the sense that there's no legal constraints, there's nothing to stop companies coming in. However, it is difficult to copy the product. The product itself is complicated. And that may put off companies from setting up. And in this case, we say that the innovator is getting the profits. The innovator, because it's the product itself is protecting the company. The product is protecting itself because it's difficult to produce. It's not relying on legal barriers to stop companies coming in. It's not relying on expertise or on specialist machinery. It just simply means the product is so sophisticated, competitors find it difficult. So in that case, it's innovator profits. Where it's tightly held, in other words, where there are legal constraints or specialist machinery or obstacles for companies coming in to set up, tightly held, and where it's high imitability, in other words, anyone can copy the product, then it means whoever holds the assets that can produce it will get the profits. Companies will want to copy it because it's high imitability. They can copy the product. The product itself is straightforward. The way it's designed, the mechanism, the functionality, everything's straightforward. It can be copied. It just, they haven't got the assets or the complementary assets to do it. They haven't got the right to do it because the company has got a patent on it. And if they start producing it, they'll have to go to court. Or it may be they don't want to spend a lot of time training their workforce or reconfiguring their machinery or getting specialist machinery in to make the product. So whoever is making it, if they've got tightly held controlled assets and they're making the product, even though the product itself can be copied, they have got asset profits. So we have 4 categories here on this slide, which is very interesting because now in terms of innovation, we've got a linkage between how easy it is to copy something, the imitability, and on the horizontal axis, complementary assets, all the ones I've been talking about. So we can see the interplay between the two of these and how important they are. And as one varies, the other one is influenced as well. The Teece model was first introduced by David Teece in 1986. The matrix takes into consideration the innovation's capacity and who will ultimately benefit from an innovation. So it's trying to find out who benefits from the innovation. Is it the innovator or the companies come in to copy it? And what influences the companies who want to come in to copy the product? Well, here we've got it. We've got it on the diagram, we've got it on the axis. How easy is it to copy the product, and do they have the complementary assets? The legal right to do so? Have they got the machinery, the expertise, the distribution, and so on? How easy is it for them to do it? Now in the slides we go from here, I'm just simply going to talk about the matrix we've got here and go across what I've been saying so far, just to reiterate it and make it a little clearer perhaps. The matrix identifies 4 possible outcomes of an innovation. So we can see the 4 of them in front of us. Now, imitability. Can competitors easily imitate or copy or duplicate the innovation? What protection rights does the innovator hold? So, can it be imitated? When we say it's low imitability, it means something's, it could be the product is very sophisticated, very complicated, difficult to copy, or it could be, again, they've got some sort of legal obstacle to stop people from imitating it. So it's not easy to imitate, that's the point. So when we say low, we mean it's a sophisticated product, difficult to copy, or as I said, we may have some sort of barriers to stop people, other companies from copying. For example, intellectual property rights, trademarks, patents, copyrights, legal requirements. So this could be associated with low imitability. Low imitability means it's very difficult for companies to produce that particular product. They're limited. Now, complementary assets. What assets does the company have to ensure effective sales? What are their marketability strategies and strengths? Distribution channels, reputation, licensing agreements, alliances, marketing promotion strengths, reputation, how to imagine what the market will be, customer relationships and loyalty. So all of these other bits fit up with the complementary part. And it's not just a question of producing the product. It's when it's produced, they need the outlets, they need the marketing channels, they need licensing agreements. Perhaps, as I said earlier, the product may be protected legally, so they might have to have a licensing agreement. They might have to have some sort of distribution channel which gets the product to the customer. And perhaps that's because the product is new, that will not have been established. So there are high costs for a company trying to imitate the product and produce the product. Difficult to make profit. If the innovation is easy to copy and complementary assets are seen as unimportant, then it would be extremely difficult to make a profit from the innovation. So if it's the case that it's anyone can produce it, there's no legal restrictions, it's not a complicated product, anyone can do it, and complementary assets, no real issues, no problems with the complementary assets, the distribution, the sales, whatever, then in which case lots of companies will want to do it because there are profits to be made. But as more companies produce it, the competitive process, from our knowledge of economic theory, the competitive process will kick in, meaning more of the item will be placed on the market, the price will be driven down, and profits will be driven down as well. So if it's highly imitable and freely available, there won't be any profits, or there'll be very little profit. Holder of assets profits. This is number 2. If complementary assets are considered important and effectively used, and imitability is high, the asset holder will benefit from the innovation. Well, anyone can copy the product. The product is quite straightforward, and perhaps there are no legal restrictions on copying the product, and technically it looks easy and it is easy to copy. But some company has got a monopoly or a near monopoly on the distribution channels that product will need. So if they're tightly held, if one company is dominating the distribution channel and the outlets that the product will need, then that company will make more profit on the product than the others, because that company controls the distribution. There's no point in making it unless it can be sold. So, where have we got to? The highest bargaining power. This is number 4. Complementary assets are tightly held, which means there's higher power through negotiation, innovation, partnerships, can form profit in proportion. Sometimes companies can build alliances. They can come together and start to share. So for example, let's say one company dominates distribution, dominates the market, has got a lot of contacts in the market, a lot of outlets in the market. And a different company makes a product that's difficult for other companies to copy. They've got legal restraints on production, only they can produce it. And also the product perhaps is quite difficult to make and requires specialist knowledge. So it's low imitability, but the distribution channel is tightly held by another company. Now, it's in the interest of both of them to get together to try to sell the product. One company will make it because They have the right to make it and they have the know-how. The other company, however, has the distribution channels. So now the two come together and they bargain over the profits. And that's what's meant by number 4. RC Cola was an innovative beverage company who was the first to introduce Diet Cola and beverages in cans. Due to poor imitation, the company was unable to successfully protect their innovations. Other companies had similar production facilities, and they were able to copy the product quite easily. Companies such as Pepsi and Coca-Cola had strong complementary assets and were able to imitate or duplicate the idea. And they, of course, now are considered to be the market leaders. RC Cola has just about gone, I think. Don't often see it. But they were the originator of the idea. They were the ones with the idea. However, it could be imitated easily. And the others had complementary assets. So, in other words, the others were tooled up for the production of a product such as that, but they also had the distribution channels and the outlets from their other products, so they could use those for this extra product, this new product. And that's really all we need to do with the Teece model. It's a very interesting model because, as I said, it gives us a framework to look at the interplay between imitability and complementary assets. And we can see the more of one, the less of the other, or whatever. We can discuss these 4 possibilities. And we can see, we get a greater understanding of the competitive process in this case. And this time it's related through innovation and the innovation theory material that we're looking at. And that's a source of that was used in the preparation of the class, and that's all we're going to deal with here. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.